Welcome to the Real Estate Masters Podcast, where we interview the top names in the real estate game. If you want to grow your real estate business, see more podcasts, or get free resources, go to www.remcommunity.com. The only podcast that allows you to directly connect with the guests and many of the highest level names in the real estate game.
You are in for a treat with our next guest. Do me a favor, subscribe to the podcast, leave us a review, and don't forget to go to remcommunity.com to connect with some of the highest level real estate professionals in the United States through our community and through our high level masterminds. Let's go.
All right, welcome to today's episode. We have Eric Moeller with Short-Term Rental Legends, the short-term rental king on the line here. What's going on, Eric? Good to see you, man.
Dude, good seeing you, man. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. So Eric I've known Eric for several years now. He's actually one of the first people I connected with in San Diego, probably, must have been 5 years ago or so when I moved. Become friends since and business associates, seen him grow his business, which has been awesome. So tell us about the short-term game. So you're one of the main experts in the field right now. You've got your Facebook group, you've got your mastermind, you got a lot of great things going. A lot of people go to you and respect you for short-term rentals. That's one of the big things that have come up in the last 5 to 10 years since Airbnb kind of made that space big. So I guess tell us a little bit about your short-term game, the benefits of it, and kind of what you're doing with Short-Term Rental Legends.
Yeah, man. Yeah, it's been a journey. Yeah, I think we met when I had first moved out to San Diego as well. So we were kind of like both relocating to that area. And yeah, my background is in real estate investing, as you know, just like the whole flip business, the development business, the old, traditional property, investing and rental business. Got burnt out with that whole model, as I think many or most investors do. Yep. at certain levels. And long story short, I found the model of short-term rentals. I wanted to get into a business that I could run, kind of not be tied into a certain location, right? My old business was in New Jersey and I was kind of burnt out with Jersey. I wanted to go to San Diego, live on the beach, that old dream. Yep. And I found the short-term rental model, right? And I first started doing the renting apartments and houses and then re-renting them back out on Airbnb and making a spread on that. I grew that to a handful of different properties. Then we got into the management business where we're like, okay, well, instead of us leasing it, let's partner with investors, and we will manage the Airbnb side, the short-term rental side, and just charge a percentage, right, of profits. Grew that as a business as well, and all throughout Southern California, different other markets around the country. And that was a lot of fun. We did a lot of properties, did upwards of 100 properties that way, and cash flow was great. But as we were growing that business, we were also sharing our techniques through the internet and sharing it with the world of what we were doing, what we were figuring out. And before we knew it, our educational business just started growing around the world. And there was only a handful of people that were really focused on internet marketing and really sharing what they were doing and offering these techniques as either coaching or whatever that was. So we grew that pretty quick. And last year I decided to exit out of the property side and go all in on the educational business, which was actually a blessing with what happened with the COVID situation. So what we've pivoted a few times, but essentially what we focus on now is we have a company called Short-Term Rental Legends, and it's a high level mastermind. And we focus on companies around the world that operate short-term rentals at scale. So to enter into our mastermind, you have to be doing about $2 million a year or more in top line revenue, or a minimum of 30 short-term rental units. Mm-hmm. Most people that are in our group are running about 100 to 300 units, roughly. But we're really a traditional mastermind. We focus on a very high level, and really kind of focusing on how do we become better operators, create better hospitality experiences, and really drive this industry forward. And then through that as well, we have other educational products and masterminds and all kinds of offerings within there. So Yeah, so that's what we're focused on now. And as I was just mentioning before the podcast, we're pivoting back into the real estate side, but we're getting away from leases and we're focusing on management and ownership, and really kind of focusing on a brand, a specialized brand around that model. So I'll leave it up to you with the questions on where to go with that one. But
Yeah.
we're doing quite a bit right now in the industry.
Cool. Good stuff, man. So a lot of people that are listening to this either have maybe a few units, maybe they own 30 more units and can be a part of short-term rental legends. But for those that are either at small scale or want to start their own short-term business, usually people start with their house, right?
Mhm.
They rent a bedroom or they move out and they, lease their property on short-term rental sites. So for someone getting started, what would be the top things you would say or pieces of advice that you would give those just starting out?
Yeah, I think, so let me be clear on this. We focus more on the entrepreneur versus the mom and pop host, right? So we
Mhm.
don't necessarily focus on the individuals that want to rent out an extra bedroom, or if they go on vacation, how to rent out their house. And the reason for that is I mean, you know me throughout the years. I like to focus on scale, I like to focus on business, brands, all of that. So those are the people I usually talk to, and they're typically either entrepreneurs or real estate investors, really understanding like, hey, short-term rentals is a really powerful niche. It's not going anywhere, and it's going to be a new avenue for real estate to grow, real estate income. So if we're talking to those individuals, I think the very first thing there is like, you have to understand that this short-term rentals at the end of the day is a hospitality business, right? It's very difficult to get a property, put it up on Airbnb, and just set it and forget it and make money. A lot of people out there sell courses and YouTube videos and all this stuff about how this is a fully automated business, and it's not. It's a hospitality business at the heart of it. So before you even decide to enter into it, you got to decide what excites you the most about this model. And for me, what excites me the most about this model is the ability to create a unique hospitality experience for a traveler coming to the area, right? And I get to leverage that by investing and running unique properties, right? So I think the very first thing is like understanding it's a hospitality business, and you have to understand at what level do you want to play in that industry, right?
Mm.
So it's not just getting a property, putting furniture in it, put it on Airbnb, and now you're 2-3xing your rent, long-term rents, right? There's a lot that comes along with it that justifies that 2x rent on that
So whether
property.
you have 1 unit or 100 units, you need to treat it like a business. Like you've got to woo the customers. You got to make sure you got good customer service. There's no kinks. You think of, the small details to make their stay comfortable, like you would a hotel, right? And
Yeah.
so what gets someone from owning 1 unit to 30, or not even owning, but I guess some of them may be managed, but getting them from 1 unit to 30 to 100 to 300, like how do they scale, especially since short-term rentals really haven't been a huge thing until the last, 5 to 10 years or so.
Yeah. Systems. It's all about systems, man. It's, like there's three main ways of scaling this type of business in the short-term rental space. It's leverage, which is management or leasing somebody else's property and then running it as a short-term rental, or two
Mm-hmm.
is owning the property and then running it as a short-term rental. But to get from one to, we found that there's these different stages. You have the mom and pop hosts that are running 1 to 10 properties. That's a certain stage. And then from 10 to 25 is a whole nother level to enter into. And then 25 to 50 and then 50 to 100 and beyond are these different stages. And what we found, especially with the STR Legends in our group, is they focused on deciding, once they decided like, hey, this is the hospitality industry that I really want to get involved with, they narrowed it down like any other real estate investor or business. They figured out what was working. They figured out what property they wanted to go after. They figured out what guest they wanted to serve. They made 1 to 2 or 10 properties successful, and then they just duplicated that through systems and technology. right? This is one business. This is one business within the real estate industry that is very scalable, with little funding, lean teams, and a ton of technology, right? And I can break that down with what that actually means. But we found, again, people figuring out the asset they want to go after, the guests that they wanted to serve. And then once they made that successful on one or two properties, they duplicated that through their systems and technology, and then leveraged virtual assistants to scale it. Does that make sense?
Now, did you say, maybe I'm saying this, low overhead, or is that what you said?
Well,
low overhead?
What I meant by that is, for us, and like our old business model of flipping and all that stuff at scale, you need a lot of money, you need a lot of investors, you need a big team, you need a lot of management, right? It's a very people heavy business. Somebody in my mastermind, for example, they own 2 boutique hotels in California, and they run over 150 short-term rentals on Airbnb.
In San Diego, all together? In San Diego?
Los Angeles, yeah. So they're all in one area. It's a specific, they only focus on 1 and 2 bedroom apartments. They only focus on working with real estate investors to where they can take over an entire apartment building, or 4-plex, 8-plex, whatever that is. They have a specific asset, and they only focus on business travelers, and now extended stay because of COVID. They literally have one on the boots contractor or maintenance guy in Los Angeles that deals with the entire property, all their properties. It's the 2 of them plus 10 virtual assistants in the Philippines that runs their entire portfolio, right? And that's what I mean by low overhead, right? It's like they were able to leverage technology and leverage virtual assistants to scale that model.
Now, of course, 10 virtual assistants, that sounds like a lot to manage, but if they have like good systems and processes and procedures and software to help manage that, hopefully they shouldn't have to oversee them every single day and look over their shoulder, right? So that's kind of what you're saying, is that you can leverage, because 100 plus units with 10 people, that's, I guess that's pretty good. That's not a lot of people, as long as you don't have to, manage them every single day, right?
No. So, the approach is, you hire the manager the virtual assistant manager who's going to manage the rest of the virtual assistants. Right. So they manage 2 people. They manage the maintenance person, and they manage their VA manager who's following their system. So, yeah. So my whole point of bringing this up, man, is like to answer your question. It's like how somebody can go from 1 to 30 or from 30 to 100. It all breaks down to understanding the asset that works for them in their marketplace, the guest avatar that they're servicing. Because it's kind of, you have there's different needs to service Airbnbs for families, right? Like you and your family, versus a business traveler or a single person coming to the city for whatever reason.
So you kind of need to niche it down. I know you love that term, niche it down, right?
Yeah.
So
yeah.
But what if you're in like San Diego and you have all kinds of different travelers? You have business, you have pleasure, you have people visiting that are family, you have graduations, you have sporting events. I mean, there's so many different things. Are you saying you can't cater to all of them?
It's very difficult to be great in this business if you're catering to everybody. And that's any business. That's any business, right? It's like, again, someone coming to San Diego with a family, they have different needs, and they're interested in different properties, and they need a different type of customer service than someone who's coming to San Diego to go to a conference or to do whatever you can do in COVID era times, right?
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Gotcha. So are there certain markets that are better than others? Like San Diego is a high priced market. So the rents and the prices are pretty high. I'm from Wichita, Kansas. Kansas City's not too far away. I hear Kansas City's a pretty good market. Have you seen like certain markets or certain price points that are better for short-term rentals?
Yeah. So right now, the whole industry has been flipped upside down because of COVID, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what we're seeing, and this is most parts around the US and Canada, but we're also noticing this because in the STR Legends Mastermind, we have the biggest companies from Iceland and Australia, Japan, Europe, all over the place. And we're starting to see that this is happening in pretty much every country around the world that has high tourism or short-term rentals is popular. Secondary drive-in markets are on fire right now. So urban markets, LA, New York City, San Francisco, Oregon, downtown San Diego, these markets are struggling to keep their short-term rental business going, right? You have a lot of saturation in there with a lot of hosts and a lot of investors and VC-backed companies that have leased up hundreds and hundreds of units per city. So they're just dropping their daily rate down to pennies just to get people in there, just to focus on occupancy, right? Less people want to be in cities right now, right? And there's a lot of factors behind that, that's driving that, but less people want to be in cities. They want to be surrounded by less human beings. They want to be surrounded by less concrete and the city jungle, right? They want to be in nature. Humans want to be in nature right now. So those drive-in markets that are mountain towns that's surrounded by nature, right? Mountain towns, lake towns, all of that outside major cities within a few hour drive are doing really, really well. Literally operating at
Is that gonna
occupancy.
be forever, or is that more mainly because of COVID, and then as that kind of like dies off, then people will go back to the cities?
That
to be determined?
Yeah, I think that's to be determined. I have an opinion on it. I think, and this is just my opinion, I think we're going to see less people moving forward in major cities. I see those secondary markets really expanding. I think people want more land and want more space and want to be surrounded by people they love and trust versus a city full of strangers in a way, right?
Yeah.
So we're seeing it in San Diego. Most people I know in San Diego have left. Most people I know in LA and San Francisco and New York and New Jersey all have left those states and cities to go to areas where they can get more land, like Texas and Colorado, areas like that. And including myself, we're moving to Texas soon. So.
Oh, really?
Yeah, we're getting out of here, man.
Nice. Is it because of taxes or because of what you said? You just want to spread out and, because my wife and I had talked about that before. It's like, man, for what we pay for like a starter house here, we can get a mansion in like, Kansas, right? So.
Yeah. It's ridiculous here, man. Yeah. Prices are insane. Cost of living is insane. The local and state government here are just it doesn't make sense, the amount of taxes and regulations. And between myself and my girlfriend, we have 4 companies, right? And we want to build a team. We want to create jobs. We want to have an office. We want to have a family eventually. To do that in California, you got to play at such a different level.
Yeah.
That why would you do that when we have the option and the choice to go to a state that supports entrepreneurship and those jobs and all of that? So yeah, there's many reasons why we're doing it. San Diego is potentially shutting down short-term rentals. So it's, we want to go to a place that actually supports entrepreneurship, supports our business models. And it seems like Texas is very hot for that right now.
Well, that's a good point. You said, because I thought LA had shut down short-term rentals. Maybe I'm wrong. Diego, they did. Okay. So San Diego has tried to, and at some point they may. So what about like Texas, like places in Texas? Is that a thing as well? Or are they pretty open with short-term rentals and being able to do that?
Yeah, so for most places in the United States, short-term rentals is regulated on a local basis, right? So you have some states like Florida, Texas, and Arizona that say, hey, it's illegal for a local city to create any type of bans or restrictions around short-term rentals. Wow. Because the owners are can treat their properties the way that they want to treat their properties, right?
Nice.
aside from opening up a car shop in the middle of a suburban area, right?
Right.
If you want to rent your property for a year, 30 days or a day, you're allowed to do that as an owner. So there's a few states that have done that. With that said, there's a lot of local, like Austin, Texas, they're constantly going back and forth with new laws restricting short-term rentals, fighting with the state, all this stuff. So every single day is something new with short-term rentals. And that's why I think secondary markets are great markets to really invest in long-term for this model versus the urban markets, where up until COVID was the markets to be in for Airbnb and short-term rentals.
So would you consider, like, I don't know if you know much about Kansas City, would you consider that a secondary market? Because it's not huge, it's not cluttered, it's, it's a pretty decent sized town, but it's not like a San Diego or LA where it's just like super jam-packed, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And that's a bit more urban there too, right? As far as like the landscape versus like a Lake Tahoe, which is all vacation rentals, right? So yeah, Kansas City is an incredible market for it. I have we have a couple of legends there that are running 50 and 100 properties. But there are some restrictions that are coming in over there as well. So yeah.
So what do you say? So what do you say about that? What do you do to protect yourself? Like, obviously, if you're leasing, you probably want to create as many outs as possible in your master lease. But I mean, what else are people doing to protect themselves that have hundreds of properties, especially in an area that could have restrictions?
Yeah. Yeah. And to clarify on all this, right? It's like, if you're in the mindset of scaling a short-term rental business to hundreds of units, which is completely possible still in this market, you want to obviously diversify as much as possible. If you're going to lease, which I don't recommend leasing, I think it's a bad model. I've been preaching that for over a year.
Those guys that are doing scale, a lot of those guys own those properties.
So they're switching, right? So COVID forced them to switch the model. They went from leasing all the properties to then what we call rev share, where we switch the leases to a property management type of contract with the owner. So the owner is taking the risk with us. But at the end of the day, we share profits. The owner will make more money. We take a portion of revenue. And that's a very scalable model because you're not all focused on debt. Where leasing, it's all debt. And the only way that you make money in leasing is when a market is going up. And it's highly, highly it's very risky. But now the new model where I see a lot of these operators, including myself, really focusing on is how do we control more properties with the right to run as short-term rentals? How do we buy more boutique hotels? How do we buy more small apartment buildings that we can get the permits to run as a short-term rental, or how do we buy single-family homes in traditional vacation rental markets that allow short-term rentals for all year round? It's part of their culture.
So someone that's really wanting to make this a business, obviously, if they own a property, that's pretty easy. You can probably own a property and do short-term rental. But if someone wants to do multiple properties, you're saying leasing is not a great idea. Rev share model is probably the most scalable. And then would you say ownership after that? So basically rev share model is kind of what you're pushing with your people and probably what you're going to try and do in your new business.
Yeah. And I'll answer that, like work backwards on that. The only reason why we're going into the management model, the rev share model, is to enter into new markets we've never been in before, like Park City, Utah, Lake Tahoe in Nevada, on the Nevada side, not California side, Nevada side, Austin, right? And Austin areas. Is we want to expand into those areas and get to know the markets. And to do that, we can use the rev share model to generate cash flow very quickly and very easily while we're studying the market to buy properties. Right. And the whole objective is to use everything that we're doing here is to buy and control real estate. Right. If you have the ability to buy real estate and you're patient and you have the ability to be patient, go right to the ownership model. Right. And you can leverage real estate, buying real estate and running it as a short-term rental in so many different ways. But if you're somebody who needs to get cash or wants to develop this model to generate cash flow, the rev share model or the management model is one of the best ways to do that. And if you have the right systems, the right, the right processes, and you understand what you're going after, you can scale it very quickly with very little overhead and with very little investment into that model.
What would you say? I guess one of the best ways for someone to get into it is obviously owning their own property, which most people, if they own a property, it's like one and, potentially a rental. Like for someone like me that owns like over 100 rental properties, if I wanted to take those properties or start taking those properties and turn them into short-term rentals, how difficult do you think that is? I mean, obviously you have to furnish them. You've got, more requests. You've got more people that are occupying the property. Have you had anybody that that has done that and kind of what the experience is?
100%. An investor, he's a legend in our group, an investor, Richard, out of San Antonio, Texas. He has over 150 properties as well. Really, really smart guy. And he was kind of in the same model as us, buying distressed properties, renovating them, and either flipping or renting them out long-term, right? Austin started blowing up over the last few years. San Antonio is just down the road from there. So he started switching over his long-term rentals and his new investments into short-term rentals, right? And there's two things to know there. One is, aside from understanding the asset and is it needed in your marketplace, will people actually rent it, and can it be more profitable than a short-term rental? That's one thing to understand. But the two main things to understand is, one is you're gonna invest more money into these properties because you have to go a bit higher end. You have to invest in furniture, linens, cleaning, that whole thing. It's got to be high end, right? When I say high end, it's got to be world-class accommodations. So you're investing more into these properties. But then two is, the moment that you decide to do that, you have now created a second business for yourself, which is the short-term rental management business.
Yeah.
Because now you're dealing with marketing and advertising and customer service and repairs and all this other stuff. And if you're going to do that in-house, you have to know those are two separate businesses. So keep that in mind. If, like, for yourself, if you say, hey, Eric, I want to convert 25% of my portfolio, you have to ask yourself, are you managing everything on the Airbnb short-term rental side in-house, or can it still be profitable for you by outsourcing that to the correct local property management company in your area, short-term rental property management company?
So did he take all 150 and turn them into short-term rentals, or just some of them?
Some of them. I think he's like 50-50 right now.
Okay.
Because some properties won't do well as a short-term rental.
Right.
Could be location, could be the style of home, could be the neighbors, it could be whatever that is, to where it's like, hey, I got this awesome tenant, I'm cash flowing on this property, they're never leaving, why would I change it? And now he's buying properties and renovating them, and instead of flipping them, he's running them as short-term rentals, putting long-term financing on it, and 2xing his rent on some of these properties. So I would say he's 50-50 right now on that model.
Gotcha. Cool. So we'll start wrapping it up here. So I appreciate you sharing. There's some people that probably want to get into short-term rentals. So either you've talked them into it or out of it. It's one of those things that people think it's probably really sexy, but it is work, and you do need to treat it like a business. Is there anything else you can share with our audience that I guess could help them if they decide to take the leap into short-term rentals?
Yeah, I mean, with all that said, and I like to talk blunt about this because there's a lot of experts out there in this space saying that it's a set it and forget it type of business, and it's not at all. It's like any other business. It takes work and dedication and all of that, but man, I love this freaking industry. It's brought me all around the world. I've met some incredible people. I have the ability, my business the new brand that we're going to be launching next year, I'm literally developing a company to own and manage properties in the areas that I want to travel to and spend time in the most. Park City, San Diego, Barcelona, Spain. Like, we're going to be running properties there and I'm going to be spending time in these properties running my business, right? So even though it could be difficult at times to scale this business, it's an incredible company or incredible industry. It's not going anywhere. And if you're dedicated to it and it excites you, it's a great model to either scale, or it's a great model to be able to leverage to acquire new properties in different areas, right? So that's more of a motivational thing of just knowing that, hey, COVID hit us pretty hard, but we're doing really, really well right now, if not better than where we were before we started. And I don't think the industry is going anywhere. So, and then for anybody who wants to start, I mean, they could just check out, we have a ton of free resources, from Facebook groups to blogs to podcasts, all that stuff, that we kind of just let the dams open of content. So they could always go to strprofitacademy.com and check all that stuff out. And yeah.
Cool, man. Yeah, we'll put some more links down below for you guys to check it out, because obviously there'll be people wanting to start investing in short-term rentals. There'll be some that maybe want to check out STR Legends that own lots of properties. So we'll make sure we include those. So congrats on your success, man. Like I said, five years ago, I know you moved to San Diego, got out of the single family flipping business, and we're kind of trying to figure out what you're wanting to do. So it's awesome seeing you grow, man. And just like anything, I know you had to jump into some things that maybe worked or didn't work, and then finally found, your niche and what you're doing, man. And you're really motivating the industry and getting people to create businesses around this, which is phenomenal, man. So congrats on your success, and appreciate you coming on, and look forward to catching up with you again.
Of course, man. Thank you, brother. Appreciate your time.
All right, man. Talk soon. Thanks for listening. Now go to www.remcommunity.com to connect with today's guest, see our high-level masterminds, and to get free resources. Don't forget to share this with a friend and leave us a 5-star review. We'll see you on the next episode.